And we are back. Welcome back to King's Report on this beautiful Friday, January 5th, 2018. It is cold out there, folks. Hope everybody's staying bundled up. Remember, the Bible says, let no man take thy crown. It's so important to understand co-heirship with Christ. And of course, the rule of the rod of iron and why civilians need to have the rod of iron to keep society safe and to love God, love your neighbor, and be our brother's keeper. We are, of course, so blessed again to be joined by the wonderful Lois Kaneshiki. I'm sorry if I butchered your last name there, but brilliant and absolutely totally informative in terms of her breaking down last time that she was on the committees and how the structure from the local all the way up to state is set up in terms of the Republican Party. We're going to get more into that today. Ms. Kaneshiki was elected chair of Blair County Republican Committee in June 2016, right in the middle of the Donald Trump for president campaign. She's also ran as a Ted Cruz delegate to the Republican National Convention in Pennsylvania, 9th Congressional District. She is a true hero within the libertarian movement in Pennsylvania. Lois is the founder of the Pennsylvania Precinct Project, a hero within the libertarian movement here. She's dedicated to informing Pennsylvanians on how they can become effective political committee representatives in their counties and recruiting candidates for their precinct offices. We're dedicated to taking back our country from the ground up. She also hosted a local public access television show on political topics entitled Speak Out. 2008, she started the Precinct Project in Pennsylvania, again following in the footsteps of other nationwide to inform reform-minded citizens how to take back their political parties through the election process. Thank you, Lois, so much for joining us again this morning.
Thank you for having me.
It's always a pleasure, and we always learn so much. You were mentioning during the break that we have the straw polls coming up, and if you could break that down for us, for our audience here, just once again.
Sure. Well, the party is structured in a committee format, and there's 3 levels. So you have your local county party, the committees, and you have your state party committee, and then you have most people have heard of the Republican National Committee. That's the national committee, and every state has 2 representatives on the national committee plus their state chairman. And you hear the RNC referred to a lot, and that's who that is, and they're the big money raisers, and that's a whole nother show you could do on why the RNC has more money than any other entity in politics, because we have all these local committees running around broke, and we're all volunteers, yet the RNC is rich, and how does that happen? And that's another story. But we've got a statewide election this year. We've got governor and U.S. Senate elected in the state, so the state party gets involved with that. In fact, the state party is really important because elections are run at the state level. So all the get out the vote and everything is done at the state and local level. The national party or Washington D.C. has very little to do with your local elections or the elections in your state, because it's run by the state itself. So it's very important that we have a healthy system and that it's well run. But there's a process for these statewide elections where the party has a process where they do straw polls, and then in February there's a meeting of state committee members, the state party, and they will vote whether or not to endorse a candidate. Now we're talking middle of February. This is March, April, May, 3 months before the primary. Most people haven't even heard of the candidates yet, let alone to decide who should be the candidate, right? So
right.
No one's really the party elect the nominee until after the primary, because the voters decide in the primary. But what happens is after these straw polls and the endorsement meeting, the party will usually endorse their favorite candidate for whatever reason, and then a lot of other candidates may drop out because they figure they didn't get the endorsement. They don't want to run. They call it running against the party, believe it or not, and because it creates a lot of bad blood and ill will because these party officials endorse someone and you think you're going to run against who they picked. This may sound crazy to you, and it sounds crazy to me too, but it's pitting Republicans against one another in a kind of unhealthy manner. It's not a normal competition. It's not like, okay, we have a primary, so we're going to have all these candidates run, right? 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever. And then we're just going to hear them all out and let the voters pick. It's not the way it works. The party gets involved, they pick their favorite candidate, and then it creates this very awkward situation where now the other candidates have to decide, am I going to go against these party officials and run anyway? Or am I going to drop out and, try some other time maybe? But it cuts short the primary. It cuts it short by 3 months. And the people are totally shut out of the process in the meantime, and they don't even know this is going on. So
right.
What's happening this Saturday, it's the first regional straw poll. So the party, and I'm talking about the state party made up of elected people that the people voted for, okay? This Saturday, the Central Caucus is going to meet, which is, I have a map here. I can show you. Okay, if you can see that. A Central Caucus is that green section in the middle. It's a huge, it's geographically, it's the biggest caucus. We're considered the most independent and conservative caucus in the state. It's a very important straw poll. Okay, so January 6th, 4 months, February, March, April, May, 4 months before the primary, okay, Central Caucus members, of which I am a member, are going to be asked who we favor for governor, lieutenant governor, and U.S. Senate. I mean, it is way, way too early. So now, after this straw poll, I don't know what's going to happen, but I do know that there's going to be 5 other meetings before February 10th. These 5 other regions, okay? The Southeast, which is the most powerful caucus, that's Philadelphia and Bucks County and Montgomery County, Chester. Then you have the Northeast, you have the Northwest, you got Southwest, and you have this, what is that? This is a Northeast, Northeast Central. And
right.
so they're all going to have their own straw poll meetings. And what happens is they all get together and the candidates all come and the candidates maybe speak for a few minutes and then we can ask them questions. But most of this vetting is done before these straw poll meetings. These candidates have spent the last 2 or 3 months, some of them only maybe a couple of weeks, in trying and feverishly working to get the favor of people like me and state committee members because they want our vote at the straw poll meeting. So instead of going out and campaigning with the people, they're spending all their time on the phone and running around the state meeting with people like me to try to get our favor. And what I did last night, I don't know if you heard, but we had a first public forum for all the candidates because I wanted Pennsylvania to meet the candidates so they can see we've got 4 good candidates for governor, and let's not cut short this process. Let's let the people decide. And I urged people to please try to get in touch with your state committee members and tell them that you don't want them to pick a candidate for them so early, that you as a voter want the opportunity to vote in May. And if they decide in February, these other candidates may just drop out.
Right, because you have to basically run against these sort of ordained, chosen ones.
Yes. So how do you find out who your state committee members are? That's a really good question because this isn't something they publicize. It seems like these people want to stay, kind of in the shadows. But if you go on the state party website, pagop.org, if you go to the bottom, there is you can find a link. It says counties. And you find that link, you click on the link, and it has a map of the state, and you click on your county, and it should have a list of your state party members. Now, there is no contact information.
Go to that website, guys. Go to the website.
But you can call your your county chairman, and you can say, I want to reach, well, first of all, your party chairman has a vote at this straw poll meeting, so you can for her too, but you can represent me and tell them, I don't want an amendment. I want a no primary. The voters have a chance to get to know these people really we're sick and pick the best person in May. And that's much, it's going to
because that's because basically what you're fighting for and trying to help people bring awareness to is the fact that like this it's almost like semi-rigged in the sense that they have these chosen ones that they're having that they put out, and then if you run against them you may not get around Ron Paul or Rand Paul. You may they may just choose all Mitch McConnells, or they may just choose all Paul Ryan types.
And the Southeast has and the Southeast has such an inordinate influence in this process, and it's frustrating to us out here because I live in the central part of the state. And what happens in the Southeast is it's very strange. Like first of all, as far as like how many state committee members each county has, we don't have an equal number. It's based on how many registered Republicans are in your county. So, for example, we have 4 in my county, Blair. Say in Philadelphia, they have over 20 because there's so many more people there.
Right.
So when Philadelphia votes, their vote counts 5 times more than ours. And then you add Chester County and Montgomery County and Bucks County, and it's a lot of votes. And you would think, well, that's a lot of votes. The candidates can get around and try to, get those votes. But what happens is they tend to vote as a block. It's almost like somebody tells them who they want them to vote for, and they all vote for the same person. It's very odd, and you can only imagine what goes on down there in the Southeast in the Philadelphia machine. But so if a candidate gets favor with powerful people in the Southeast, they can potentially grab a lot of those straw poll votes. In fact, we saw this happen with the judicial race, and we had originally we had 2 candidates for Supreme Court, and after the Central Caucus straw poll, one of the candidates dropped out. She didn't even bother going to the other straw poll meetings. She just dropped out, and it was very odd. We were left with one candidate, so the voters never had a choice for that.
That's incredible. That we almost went through that with President Trump on the campaign trail, with Reince Priebus having to basically forced to admit that the RNC is basically a privately held business. They have their own, chair, and they're basically preordaining these candidates for the American public, and that the actual public's vote doesn't really matter. They're the ones that would now choose the nominees. I mean, so this came out.
Well, that's more the process with the delegates, and that goes back to the Constitution. But people choose their delegates, and that's another interesting topic. But I researched this in 2016, and the state parties can put in their bylaws, they can bind the delegates to the voters' wishes if they want to. In fact, I think they did it in New York. And Pennsylvania, they haven't done it, and I'm in favor of changing that to bind the delegates, but a lot of people don't want to do that. But we had an issue with that for the first time, because for the first time, Pennsylvania actually made a difference in the election, and people were concerned about how the delegates were going to vote, and a lot of delegates wouldn't even tell them, and I thought it was kind of unethical. And as you said in my bio in your introduction, I was a Ted Cruz supporter, and I told people that, and it didn't help me in the election because we got run over by the Trump train. But I felt that the voters deserved to know who I supported, and I was honest with them from the beginning, and I would do it again in a heartbeat. But a lot of people didn't, and they won on their name instead of who they were supporting. I didn't think that was right, but you have control over that at the state level of binding those delegates, and that's an issue for 2020 that would have to be addressed now, because if you're talking about changing the party rules, it takes, believe me, it's not easy. it's a process.
Right.
But this endorsement coming up, this is imminent, and people have a very small window of opportunity. And I've heard party officials come to these meetings in the past, because I brought this topic up over the past year, and I've heard them say, well, our local people want us to endorse. And I said, well, how do you know that? Have you gone around and asked them? I mean, I don't believe it. And I heard from the local people that we've never even discussed it at our local meetings. So how would they even know what we wanted it to do? In fact, in Blair County, we're going to have a meeting on January 22nd to discuss this very topic and for our local people to vote on whether or not they want their state committee members to endorse or not, because I think that they should have a voice in this process. And no one's ever
Wow.
brought this to the fore. And I think we need to be more transparent in the party.
So you're pioneering that in Blair County. How many other counties are following your footsteps, and or are there any counties that already are doing that, or are there?
No. Well, I think a few might. I don't really know. I've heard that maybe a few might, but most of them don't. And I think, you know, I'm hoping that we can set an example that other counties will get some pressure to follow. But you have to start somewhere. And I think our state committee members, a lot of times they vote not to endorse because there's two votes at the meeting. Okay, they have a first vote is whether or not we should endorse for this office. So they'll vote yes or no, and they have to get, you know, 50% plus one. I'm trying to make it harder, change the bylaws, but that's another process. But right now it's 50% plus one. And then if we get that vote, then the next vote is, well, who should we endorse? And they will go down member by member and ask them, who do you want to endorse? And they stand up there and they take, you know, they take count, and it's a runoff. So somebody has to get 50% plus one to get the endorsement. And that's how that works. But in the meantime, people back home don't even know who the candidates are yet, and they haven't even gotten involved in, and they barely know there's an election yet.
So we have the straw polls, which are very soon. You said tomorrow, in the next few days. Now, during the break, we also talked about the fact that some of these straw polls are open, and some of them are not open to the public.
Yes, I was told that our central caucus is not open, but well, I'll find out tomorrow when I go. But I haven't had a chance to double check that. But just within the last couple of days, somebody told me that they're not open. And I know our straw poll is a private vote. It's not a public. It's not like a show of hands or anything. We write down our vote, and it's like a regular ballot when you would go vote at your polling place. But at the state party vote, that's out in the open. Anybody could see how you vote there, but not at our caucus. I think most of the caucuses do it as a secret ballot.
Well, that's interesting, because you said that it's done in January, February, and then the elections will come up in May, and so you have that time period in between. And of course, that's where a lot of the candidates, like the Ron Pauls or Rand Pauls, may drop out because of that sort of preordained structure. Yes.
I don't know what will happen this year. We've got some very independent and strong candidates that I think will stay in the race. So we may have a contested primary either way, but I don't know if they all will stay in. And it's hard to really say. We had a forum last month with the U.S. Senate candidates, and they all seem determined to stay in the race regardless what the party does. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens. But they are trying to persuade party officials, these state party members, that we need to endorse, because then I just heard this yesterday from someone that if the parties endorse early, then there's money available from the RNC to help us out with these races. But I don't know. I'm interested why I'm only hearing this now. And there's only 3 states in the whole country that do this, that endorse candidates before the primary. Only 3 states. It's us and New Jersey and New York, I think. So
wow.
If there were money involved, why wouldn't they all be endorsing before their primaries?
Right, right.
And I've seen how the party operates. They just blow all the money in the primary, and then you have to start all over again after the primary anyway, and that doesn't really matter. No, seriously. I mean, what's the point? So they blow the money running against their own people, and it just totally doesn't make sense. You're laughing. I know it's funny, but it's sad.
Right.
And about where all that money goes. I mean, in politics, all this money is going to consultants. Consultants are getting rich off of
Right,
all
right,
this
right.
campaign money, and who is it really benefiting? It's benefiting professional campaign people. That's who's getting all that money. So it's just this insider game of money shifting around, and the people are not really benefiting from it at all.
Well, it really seems like that because even in this election with President Trump, this round, I mean, last year, we really saw the people spoke. They did not. The level of trust of Congress is at an all-time low. Obviously, media is at all-time low. According to Gallup and Pew polls, and we're talking about the people have a great distrust of their government.
Yes.
Including Republicans. Many who were conventionally voting, even Democrat, I guess, switched over. I think we had in Pennsylvania like 70,000 that switched from traditional Democrat to Republican to vote Trump, because he was standing up for many libertarian things. So the voters have spoken. I mean, do you see that on the ground? Do you see people who are positioning themselves to be more libertarian minded instead of being this sort of warmongering neocon, Bush era neocon sort of vestige?
No, I don't really see that. I see, unfortunately, I see, Trump was a very media-driven candidate. He appealed to people, I think, visually. People saw him on TV a lot, and people have become very visually oriented. And I had several people tell me during the primaries that they were never really interested in politics, but they couldn't turn the TV off. They had to watch Trump. It was like,
it was like a drama.
It was, it was just like he's just that type of a personality that he draws people in, and that's an amazing gift. But how many people are like that and can duplicate that? Really, no one. It's not a duplicatable phenomenon. If people want to save their country, and it was very frustrating because I was making phone calls the other day about our gubernatorial event last night, and I actually had a gentleman say to me, "I'm not interested in the governor's race. I was just interested in getting Trump elected, and I'm not interested in anything else." And I said, well, there's a lot of issues at the state level that Trump cannot fix. If we don't fix them here in Pennsylvania, they're not getting fixed. And he's like, oh, I don't really care. And, and that was sort of an example of the challenge we have, is that just because Trump is our president doesn't mean we're fine now. We're not. We have so many challenges. One man is not God and cannot fix everything. We still need to all be involved, and we have to make sure we get a good governor here in Pennsylvania. And you know what? In the U.S. Senate, if we don't get more conservatives in the U.S. Senate, we're not going to solve these problems. We need to give Trump a better margin in the U.S. Senate. And we've got an opportunity in Pennsylvania this year to put a conservative in the U.S. Senate and get rid of the guy who's there who's just a hack for the Democratic Party. And that's us. We have to do that. Trump can't do that for us. We got to do that ourselves, and we need everybody's help.
Wow, very, very powerful. We'll be right back after this short break with more with Lois Kaneshiki.
Thank you.
It's a blessing of marriage, but the blessing of marriage is supposed to be full of joy unspeakable.
I mean, the blessing itself was amazing. I mean, it was a very special experience. I mean, it was the biggest day of my life, and we had all our family there. People came from all the way from Colorado. This one couple even from Colorado came last minute. They took a bus to get here, and I just felt so much love from friends, family. I felt God's love. I mean, I just couldn't believe that I was getting blessed, you know, like that day finally came, and I was just totally peaceful and excited, and it was an amazing experience.
Well, for me, there was one particular moment. First of all, the whole ceremony, I did not have one moment the feeling it was about us. Mm-hmm. It was literally about true Father giving. He was the walking God on earth, giving us the blessing which we, you know, like we all did not, we don't deserve, basically. And it was just so beautiful to receive that, and I felt a lot of love. And there was also a moment where Hyung was saying, "True Father is smiling," and I think he said that 3 times, and I could see that, not physically, but I could just feel him being happy, which really calmed me down, made me peaceful and happy, and it was beautiful.
And we are back. Welcome back to the Kingdom Report, Friday, January 5th, 2018. Second Kingdom Report live from the Chanigung Palace Studios to all the kings and queens of the Kingdom of God. Again, we are joined with Miss Kaneshiki. Lois, we were talking during the break about how it's so important for people to get involved. You know, one of the frustrations I have is that a lot of people in the body of Christ or churchgoers, we have a welfare mentality when it comes to we'll rail all day against the Democrats, but then when it comes to our spiritual lives, we'll have like a welfare mentality, sort of thinking that in the kingdom, God does everything for us. When the Bible doesn't say that, it says he will appoint us as judges and we'll be co-heirs with Christ, which means we have responsibilities that we have to do for his kingdom to be built. And so that's so important politically, that if we see our civilization being taken away by people who are, involved in spirit cooking with Hillary Clinton and like actual, Satanist rituals, and or even less things like, supporting the killing of babies and things like, or abortion, things like that are not so radical. In terms of the mainstream media, so to speak. It's radical, in my view, spiritually, but not in terms of people's normal consciousness. If we're letting our civilization be taken by such people who are bringing in a totally radically opposite civilization than conservative values and Judeo-Christian values, then we're really essentially giving it over to the principalities and powers that we're supposed to stand up against as people of faith and people of God, etc. How important is it for churches and people of faith to be involved politically and to express their views?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. God helps those who help themselves. I mean, I believe that he put us here to see if we could, be responsible citizens, and I think that's what he's watching us for, that requires some civic engagement, and that means, we elect our government, our representatives, and it's up to us to make sure they're doing what they said they were going to do. Most people think, well, they go vote and then they're done until the next election, but they don't pay attention in between. And we can't be responsible citizens that way. If we're not making an informed vote, our vote is just, it's not really a responsible vote, and then other people aren't voting at all and maybe not aware of the candidates. And that goes back to the party again. I always tell people, it's up to the local party to help the people get to know their candidates, because it's hard. I mean, you don't always know the people on the ballot. And, I go through great pains to bring the candidates here. And I had this forum last night here in Hollidaysburg with the candidates for governor, because I want people to meet the candidates in person and look into their eyes and hear them speak and really look into their souls and who they are. You can't just look at their website and look at some literature or whatever, or a newspaper article. You need to get a feel for who that person really is in their gut. And I firmly believe that. And so it's really your local party's job to help you get to know these people. And that was the reason I brought them in last night. But we also need more help. Our local parties are mostly all volunteer. We're all volunteer here in Blair County. Most counties are all volunteer. And, I'm fortunate that I put a lot of time into what I do, but a lot of people have full-time jobs. So there's only 24 hours in the day, and we all need a little more help. And if people want more done from their party, if they want to see things happening, you have to contribute something. Everybody can contribute in some way, whether it's making some phone calls or helping with, there's a variety of volunteer functions that can be filled. I've got a volunteer form I send people if they want to get involved, and they can look at the different things we need and see what they want to do. But any little bit helps, whatever you can do. And but we were talking about the elected positions before. Your party is made up of people who are elected on the ballot. So it's important for regular people to get involved in these positions. We talked about the county committee, and we talked about the state committee, which is now involved in the endorsement process. Most counties, all these county committee positions are up for election this year. Those are people who are elected in their local voting precinct, the people that all vote together at the same polling place. So it's all your neighbors. So in most counties, there's two people elected in each of those small voting districts. You only need 10 signatures on a petition, and you get your name on the ballot, and then your neighbors will see your name on the ballot, and they will vote for you in May, and you'll be a party official at the county level. And then you have a say in who you're going to elect for the chairman. And that's the most important person in your county, because they're the people that are going to help you get all this organized, right? Bring you the candidates and get to know the candidates and find out how the process works. That's what your chairman is there for. So it's important that the parties have strong leadership at the county level, because that's just how everything works. But then the state party is involved with this endorsement that I was explaining to you before, that is kind of interfering in our primary. And the state committee members, they're totally, it's kind of strange the way it works, but they've structured it so these state party members are completely separate from the county committee. So you have your county committee, and then you have state party members who are elected separately. So on the ballot, you'll see your local county committee person in your precinct, and then it'll say state committee, and that person is elected unless you're in a city. Those people are elected for the most part county-wide, and I'm not sure how many you have in your area, but you can pretty much see that on that map I was showing you on the PAGOP website, how many state party members you have. That's how many people will be on the ballot. And most of the time they go unopposed, because people don't even know these positions.
Right.
But in order to run for those positions, the petitions are on the ballot. Well, no, the petitions are online on the Department of State website. On the Department of State website, there's a section for candidates and campaigns, and it says, I think it's under running for office, and that's where they have the petitions, and they're not up yet, but they will be up there probably definitely within 2 weeks, I would think, and they can be downloaded from the website and have all the instructions on them. And you need 100 signatures in your county from registered Republicans, and you get that filled out. And we can do another instructional thing on how to fill those out properly. I'll probably put that on a separate informational sheet online. But if you've never done it before, this is part of the thing that your county party should be teaching you how to do.
Oh, absolutely.
But so you get that filled out, and then they have to be notarized, and they have to be filed in Harrisburg. And that's kind of the little clinch with that one, because people have to go to Harrisburg to file those petitions. And then you get on the ballot in your county for the most part, unless if you're in Philadelphia or Pittsburgh, they're done by legislative districts, so it's a little different. But in my county and your county, they're county-wide, so you would be on the ballot in the entire county, like you were running for county commissioner. And so everybody in the county would see your name on the ballot, and they could vote for you in May. And then that's the end. Then that's the end of the election. They don't go on the ballot in November because it's a party election, so it's done. Only primary voters can vote for these people. And then those are the people that will go to the state meetings and pick your candidates for you.
I mean, it just sounds so intimidating for people because they want to be involved. Again, they're busy with their families, businesses, and whatever they're doing. And it just seems like, oh my goodness, if I get involved in this, it's going to be such a massive amount of time, etc. But the downside of that, if we don't get involved politically, we're handing it over to the wolves and or to the, like the Tom Wolves of the state, or we're handing it over to the neocons of the state, which will just collude with the Democrats. And we're handing it over to people that we know will not be there for our benefit.
Well, there's other ways to handle this. You don't have to run yourself. You can get together with a group of people that you know and discuss it, and you can recruit somebody to run, or you can just decide you're going to establish contact and relationship with your state committee members, and you're just going to be, the first step is communication and being in contact with these people. If they don't hear from the public, they're not going to change their behavior.
Yes, right.
Bound, they don't have to listen to you, but you can put pressure on them. You can talk to them. You can get together a coalition to you can work other ways to influence these people without necessarily being a state party member yourself. You can recruit somebody. I mean, there's a lot of other ways to do it. You don't have to necessarily jump right in and run for one of these positions, but just start to get involved and learn who the people are, find out how to talk to them and reach them. To be persistent, though, you're going to get, people are not going to want to share this information with you. They may not want, they're really not going to want people to get involved, to be informed. You have to assert your rights to have access to these people. They're elected. They're responsible to communicate and to be accountable to the people. Don't let them get away with telling you, well, I can't give you their information, how to reach them, or blah blah. But you can even you can file a right to know request with the state and get, if you have to, and find out how to reach these people, because their petitions are public information. The petitions have their name and address and contact information on there if you can't find it. But contact them any way you can, whether you have to write them a letter or look them up on the internet. A lot of them are on Facebook, but it's just like your other elected officials, your congressman, your state rep. We have to be proactive in communicating with these people. We can't just sit back and say, oh, they won't listen to us. They can be influenced, and you just have to make an effort.
Yeah, it's interesting. Off of that last discussion we had last time you were on, you took your guidance there, and of course, even people from my community. One of them is now going to be onto this central planning. The planning board, which
Right.
deals directly with the supervisors
Yes.
in our local area. And so that's a good thing. And then also we have other folks that will be running for a commissioner and things like that. So again, it's so important. It's not cut out for everybody, but there are people that everybody knows that can, step up, that want to
That's
do
right.
something, at that level. Right.
If you see somebody that you think would be good, you need to go talk to them and encourage them, because people, like you said, people are afraid. They want to know somebody else believes in them, or somebody else thinks they would be good at something, and that will encourage. Because it is, like you said, it is intimidating and it's a little scary. So we need to support people who we believe in and we think would be good representatives for us.
Absolutely essential. If we don't do it, the downside is just giving it away. We're just giving it away to the communists.
Yes, we are. You're right. You're 100% right.
I mean, that's essentially what happened, almost with Hillary Clinton. This country almost, we wouldn't be having this discussion. We'd be in a FEMA camp. Oh my goodness. But, it's so valuable. Thank you so much, Lois. Every time we have it, it's so refreshing, because it's just so much clearer. It's just so hard to understand all the details. And I know the stuff is supposed to be on the websites enough, but sometimes it's just hard to navigate it yourself. But we have somebody who is really understands the whole process and can easily break it down for us. It just helps everybody to be empowered to know that they mean something. They have value. They can make a difference in the nation, in their country, from the local level up. And that's really empowering, and it's important, because many times we don't feel like we can make a difference, and we just feel, we believe the lies, and we believe the propaganda, and just think, okay, we should just give up. But that's what they want you to do. They want you to give up.
Exactly. The system is designed to discourage people from getting involved, not to encourage and develop, to teach people how to do it. It's so easy for somebody to tell you, to go away, and then you feel like, well, they don't care about what I have to say, so why should I try? But I don't know, nothing worth doing in life is really easy. Everything takes some effort, and it's persistence, and it's just believing in what you're doing, that it's the right thing. And the thing about it is that there's no guarantee of success. We're not guaranteed that we're going to save our country. I'm not guaranteed that I'm going to be successful, but if there's a little bit of a chance that I can be, it's worth me investing my time and making the effort.
Spoken by a true patriot. I can't say it any better than that. Lois, thank you so much for joining us this morning, giving us that very, very precious wisdom and knowledge. It is so important, folks, that we are out there and we are stepping out into the forum. Hey, pray about it. You know what I mean? Take that step, even if it's just thinking about it, praying about it, talking to somebody about it. Hey, volunteering at your local, commissioner's office or supervisor's office, whatever it is, to make that initial contact. It's so important, because you're the one who makes a difference. You're the one on the local level that can stop corruption, that can stop crazy, things that are coming up from the federal side or even the UN side. Lois is famous for stopping agenda. What was that? The UN agenda. There was an agenda 21, was it? And was it you that was blocking that on the local level, right? You shared that last time.
Oh, yeah, it was one of the initiatives that was tied into Agenda 21. There's a lot of things that go into that, but it was regionalization of the police force, and I was against that. And yeah, I was able to shut it down pretty quickly just by doing a little bit of research.
See, folks, you can make a difference, and every one of us, are called by God to stand up for His righteousness, to seek His kingdom first. And we know that the tide is turning, folks. There's a change in the atmosphere. The robber barons and the Hillary Clintons and the corrupt Democrats and the neocon right is collapsing, and we see a new structure being formed. More libertarians, more freedom-oriented people. There's a new generation of people that are becoming more churched, a new generation of young kids, millennials, that are actually voting more conservative. It's a new uptick worldwide. We have even Europe with young Austrian leadership, a 31 conservative young man Kurtz, who is leading now Austria as the prime minister. Okay, we'll be in Europe with Mr. Larry Pratt of Gun Owners America, talking about gun rights for civilians in Europe. So things are changing, folks, and God is moving in such mighty ways, but it all starts with you and me from the ground up. Lois, thank you so much for joining us once again. We thank you all for joining us on this edition of the King's Report. We thank you. Have a blessed day. Have a glorious day. Give him all the praise. Give him all the glory and honor this day. And we will see you tomorrow, 5 a.m. sharp. God bless, Godspeed, and may his kingdom come.